The Great Reset, we're landing the plane tonight. I've been really pumped and to kind of see what God has been doing. I didn't anticipate as the series started that we will literally start to see the rise and the reign of the kingdom of Babylon. The reality is the Western civilization has turned its face on God in the last 100 years, and there does come a time where God's consequence will come into existence. People tend to ignore the consequences of God, yet God's love is found in His justice. And the love of God tends to judge evil. That is why justice is amazing. We have a culture that is fighting for justice, yet it hates judgment. Yet the pathway to justice is judgment. It's kind of funny. Justice, justice, justice. I'm like, justice means judgment. Do you really want justice? I don't think so, bro. I don't think so. But tonight I want to really answer the question of how do you live in the kingdom of Babylon? And how do you lead with faith, conviction, and integrity in the midst of the kingdom of Babylon? Because Babylon isn't falling anymore. Babylon is rising. We're living in a really unique moment in the history of the Western civilization where Babylon is officially the religion of the state. Whether you like it or not, or whether you accept it or not. And simply the last 2 years, we started to see the effect of it. Mandated lockdown, mandated vaccine, mandated this, you can't do this, you can do this, you have to believe this, you can't believe this, you have to say this, you have to post this. This is simply the rise of an ancient demonic kingdom that's been operating since the beginning of time. So how do you live in the midst of the kingdom of Babylon? And how do you make it to the other side? How do you have faith, conviction, and courage and character? Because conviction is about the hill that you're willing to die on. That's what conviction is for. This is really funny because we have a generation of Christians and even politicians that claim to have conviction, yet Christ makes them lose their conviction. Like, for example, it was really funny, like the Liberal Party last year, they mandated vaccine. I'm like, dude, in your ideological framework, you are libertarian. Nothing is supposed to be mandated. But like, yeah, but there is crisis, man. There is crisis. I'm like, that's the point of the conviction, to apply in crisis. See, people are really funny because they apply character every time except in crisis. That's right. So good. They apply integrity except when pressure hits. They're always courageous until it's dangerous. I'm like, but that is the point of conviction, is that it's supposed to be applied in the midst of crisis. And I want to give people some hope today that Jesus reigns. Jesus is not just a king. Jesus is the King of Kings. It does not matter who's in charge. It does not matter who will get elected. It does not matter greenie, communist, socialist, liberalist. It doesn't even matter. Every civilization is temporary. The kingdom of God is eternal. Jesus is king above every king, prophet, and queen, and that is the beauty of the kingdom of God. And that's why our perception has to be shaped by what God is doing, not what is happening. Amen. You have at some point to see life not through the lens of the Great Reset, even though it's happening, whether you like it or not, but through the lens of the great revival of what God is doing. And this is the beauty of Babylon, that even though you will see kings and queens rise and fall, be appointed and be killed, you will still see the hand of God. You will still see the blessing of God. You will still see the miracle working hand of God. And you will still see the protection of God. In the midst of Babylon, in the midst of suffering, in the midst of pain, in the midst of persecution, you will still see, feel, sense God. That's why David said, I am confident I will see the Lord's goodness here in the land of the living. Even in the midst of Babylon, even in the midst of persecution, even in the midst of suffering, you will still see, feel, sense, and experience the goodness of God. But more than anything, you will see revival. I'm telling you right now, even in the midst of Babylon, you will see millions and millions of people turn to God. You will see the kingdom of God being established. This is the best time to be alive because God is about to pour out His Spirit even in the midst of Babylon. God is building a church in the midst of every kingdom. In the midst of every civilization. Civilization are going to come and go. Kingdoms are going to come and go. Political parties are going to come and go. But ultimately, God's kingdom, you just can't destroy it. Science have been declaring in the last few years, Christianity is going to come to an end. This is it. In the next 50 years, there's going to be no Christians. I'm like, not really, man. Not really. Our church has grown by 200% since last year. Our kids' ministry have grown by 100% in the last 365 days. Our offering has grew by 100% in the last year. Our cruise has grown by 100% in the last year. I'm like, I'm really sorry, mate. You guys have been declaring God is dead so many times, but He's still alive. And He's still moving. And people are still getting saved. And this is the beauty of Babylon, that even though it looks like you are losing on the outside, you're winning on the inside. Jesus is King, and His kingdom will come in Rome, in Babylon, in Egypt, in Persia, in China, in Russia. So how do you live in the midst of Babylon? How do you live when the spirit of Babylon is taking over? You don't get to choose what time you get to live in. This is the reality of your existence, that you think you get to choose what you want, but time chooses you. God controls times. And you don't get to choose or decide or play with the time frame that God places you in. God graces every generation with a moment and an event in time. Every single generation is entrusted with a moment in history, and for some reason, God has entrusted every single person under my voice to live in the midst of Babylon. How do you keep your integrity in the midst of Babylon? How do you keep your faith in the midst of Babylon? How do you keep your conviction in the midst of Babylon? And how do you keep your character in the midst of Babylon? Because conviction is about the hill that you're willing to die on. Conviction is tested in crisis, and character is found when it's extremely inconvenient. Yet most pastors and churches tend to crack under pressure. They will crack. Because crisis will reveal your character. Trials will reveal your integrity. I'm saying crisis will reveal your character, and trials will reveal your integrity. And then in Daniel, we found the kingdom of Babylon rising. Yet we see this interesting statement in Daniel 1 as we dig today, where you get to realize the action point of the book of Daniel. Every single person under my voice, even though you're going to see revival, you will see persecution. Even though you're going to see blessing, you're going to see pain. Even though you're going to see the protection of heaven, you will go through the fire. That is exactly what happened in the midst of Babylon. You will go through the fire, but you will not be burnt. You will go through the lion's den, but you will not be eaten. That is exactly what happened in the midst of the kingdom of Babylon, that God will protect you. And this is really funny, you've always been to the work churches, the progressive churches. You're like, yeah, you're going to go through the fire and not be burnt. I'm like, that is so amazing. This is the problem though. Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego didn't just go through the fire. They chose to go through the fire. See, in Babylon, you don't just go through the fire. You choose. I remember I went to one of those work churches before, and they always like, the fire, the fire, the fire. I'm like, dude, the fire doesn't happen to you in Babylon. You choose to go through it. And you go through it because of your conviction. You go through it because of your integrity. You go through it because of your trust in the Word of God. Amen. So you're not running away from the fire of Babylon. You're actually running to and through the fire of Babylon. And this is the promise of God in the midst of Babylon. Not that you will not go through the fire, but that you will go through the fire and not be burnt. It gets better. Your enemy will be burnt. Not that you will not go through the lion's den, politics, policies, and enemies, but that you will not be eaten. And the person that chucked you there was the person that will be chucked there after you, except they will not have the miracle working hand of God. Conviction is about the hill that you're willing to die on. And character is about standing for something. And you either choose to live for nothing or die for something. And that is why Christianity will often be the enemy to every pagan or atheist dictatorial government, because we are not scared of death. Christians will always be the most hated and persecuted group simply because you got nothing on us. We're going to chuck you the lions. Do it. We're going to chuck you in the fire. Do it. We're going to put you in jail. Do it. We're going to cut your head off. I'm like, do it. So Christians, in essence, will often become the political enemy of every pagan or atheist dictatorial leadership style. It's just the way it works. It's just the way it happens. You can't stop it. That's why if you've been watching the whole Canada game, like they arrested 2 pastors and put them in jail for 3 months. Yeah. Why would you do that during the COVID? Because Christians are not scared of death. Yeah. You will have to persecute them. You will have to torture them. You will have to find them. And you will have to put them in prison. Yeah. And they're still going to do it. In Daniel 3, we jump to the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and this is really important because they chose to go through the fire. This is the thing about the kingdom of Babylon. There will come moments in time where you will have to choose a hill to die on. You will have to choose to live for nothing or die for something. You will have to choose to let your character go through the crisis and not drop your faith, not drop your conviction, not drop your integrity. I will be the first one to be tested by this. Yeah. As more laws pass against hate speech, as the LGBTQ social justice alphabet soup community gets more, gets more holy, because you can't talk about them, can you? They're the sacred cow that we worship. And the moment you talk about them, hate speech, hate speech, hate speech. I'm like, this is so crazy, man. Yeah. Every culture has a holy cow. Every culture has a holy cow that when you blaspheme against it, the culture and the people of the time were persecuted. Wow. At the moment, it's Pride Month and the LGBTQ alphabet soup community. Wow. They are the holy cow that you cannot blaspheme against. And if you blaspheme against them one day, you will go to jail. Wow. And you'll be fired. Wow. But the time will come where your faith, your character, and your integrity and what you believe to be true will be tested. And the time is here and the time is now. Yeah. There are 2 bills that will be passed in the next few years under the Labour/Green government. They have majority of the House. Good luck for us. Both upper house and lower house. The 2 big bills are going to be that they're going to technically ban Christian schooling because you're going to have to employ LGBTQ in a Christian school, which means you're literally removing Christian education. This bill is already passed in Melbourne. And it's going to be passing here in the next few months. If you voted Labour or Green, good job, man, good job. Your kids will have no Christian education. Thanks, mate. The second bill that we pass is going to be the anti-conversion therapy bill, which is pretty much going to make it illegal for Protestant conservative pastors to pray for a homosexual person. We are watching and experiencing the kingdom of Babylon rising, every single person under my voice. The test will come to you in the next 3 years, every single person. It will be coming, knocking on your door. You're going to have to put she, her, he, him, they, them, they, them, pansexual, asexual, whatever the sexual thing that you're into. on your email. You're going to have your, pink ribbon, your brown ribbon. I'm like, how many ribbons do we need, man? There's so many ribbons now. I hate ribbons. It doesn't even mean anything anymore. Every single person under my voice, a fire will be coming, knocking on your door, and you will have to make a decision. You will have to make a decision. Daniel 3, we'll see this moment, because I always say, I've been going through the points of what actually the spirit of Babylon does. If you quickly want to take notes, I'm going to run through them. The spirit of Babylon, what does it do? Number one, the spirit of Babylon is marked by evil, totalitarian, dictatorship, leadership figure, or figures. Read the book of Daniel. Number two, the spirit of Babylon seeks to establish a one world order, government, and globalization. We'll see again quickly when we go through Daniel 3. Look, during the third year of, that's Daniel 1. Daniel 3, King Nebuchadnezzar made a gold statue, 99 feet tall and 90 feet wide, and set it up on the plain of Babylon. Then he sent a message to all these kind of people. But look what it said. It said, people of all races, nations, and languages, they have to listen to the king's command. It said a few verses later that they have to bow to the ground and worship King Nebuchadnezzar. Again, every time the spirit of Babylon rocks up in any nation, it seeks a unity of a one world government and a one world order. It's so funny. We're so passionate about diversity and inclusivity, except the people who don't believe in your type of inclusivity. That's kind of what's happening. So every language, every culture, every nation. You can see the spirit of Babylon operating since the book of Daniel. It's not a conspiracy. Person with every nation, every language, and every culture bow down to worship the exact same sacred cow. Happy Pride Month, by the way, if you're not a Christian. Actually, it's sad. Happy Humility Month if you are a Christian. But one of the four main things that the spirit of Babylon will do, number 11, TV, is that the spirit of Babylon will limit and criminalize worship. The spirit of Babylon will limit and criminalize prayer. The spirit of Babylon will limit and criminalize preaching. And finally, the spirit of Babylon will persecute and oppress and criminalize pastors and God's holy people. Not just God's people, because the people that submit, He's not going to do anything to you. It's going to be the people that believe in God's holy and sacred idea. It's going to be the people that actually believe in holiness. It's going to be the people that are actually different from the world and actually are set apart from the world. That their goal is not to impress the world, but to save the world. That their goal is not to fit in culture, but to be set apart from culture. So look again what it said in Daniel chapter 3. It said that people of all races, nations, and languages listen to the king's command. When you hear the sound of all this stuff, again, worship is always with music. Oh my, Billie Eilish, Hailey Bieber, whoever sings. Actually, Hailey Bieber doesn't sing. Whatever you're into, music is worship. When you listen to all these instruments, you have to bow down to the ground and worship the king's gold statue. That's a sacred cow of the time. Look at the next one. It said, anyone who refuses to obey will immediately be thrown into the blazing furnace. This is a problem. Pagan and atheist dictatorial governments tend to persecute Christians because we are not scared of death. They have no hold on us and they have nothing on us. Yet God gave every single person freedom. This is the thing, freedom is not a Donald Trump slogan. Freedom actually is a biblical idea. The freedom to think, the freedom to choose, the freedom to speak, the freedom to preach, and there will come, the moment will come in time where you speaking about God will cost you something. The moment will come in time where you preaching the gospel will cost you something. And the first thing God said to Adam, you are free to eat from every tree. This was the first instruction God gave to Adam. You are free. Can I tell you something? Freedom is not a right or a privilege given by government. Freedom is the reason God created you. This is really, really important. God created you to be free, and freedom does not come from man. Freedom comes from God. Do you guys remember last year? Freedom Day, Freedom Day, Freedom Day. I'm like, what do you mean by that? I'm already free. Freedom is not a privilege to be extended by your favorite political party. Freedom is your God-given right and identity. You are free. And just because something is legal, it does not mean it's moral. Can I say one more time? Just because something is legal, it does not mean it's moral. Sometimes, in fact, most of the time, what is most immoral is legal, and what is moral is illegal. Our morality does not come from the law. Our morality does not come from a policy. Our morality does not come from a mandate. Our morality does not come from government. And this is the problem with science. It gives you how to do stuff, but it doesn't give you the morality behind stuff. Science, 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 follow the science, science, science. Trust the science, trust the science. Like, what do you mean by that? I don't trust science. I trust God. And this is really massive. You don't trust science. You see science. I'm like, this is so weird. Why do you need to trust the science? You don't trust science. You experiment science. I studied civil engineering at uni. We did a lot of science. It was 100% experiments. You had to observe, you had to conclude, you had to get the values, you had to measure, and you had to mathematically find a quantity. So science is not to be trusted or believed. Science is to be tested. But this is really, really massive. Secular science is the new demonic religion. There is a new religion called scientism, where you follow the science, and trust the science, follow the science, and this is really important. Because we Christians, we believe in science. We don't trust science. We understand that science is real, but we do not live our life through the lens of science. It's just not simply how we live. So science changed from the objective observation and measuring of natural circumstances to proving scientific theories through evidence. This is really important. In the last 100 years, the actual definition of science changed. It used to be the objective observation and systematic analysis of natural circumstances. And what you do is that you will literally have to objectively observe natural circumstances. You have to measure it, you have to observe it, you have to experiment with it, and then you have to get data and analysis and mathematical calculations. That's called science. Force equal mc squared, or force equal mass of acceleration, or whatever, E equal mc squared, sorry. But science shifted from the pursuit of data and measurement to the pursuit of theories. That is the reason you have evolution scientific theory in your science book. You will have the force equal mass times acceleration and evolution theory in the exact same book. See, force is literally a measured, quantified, and qualified idea. It's a scientific idea. It always happens, 1 + 1 = 2. It doesn't change. But science had changed and shifted the definition from the pursuit of objective observation to the proof of theories through science. So evolution is not science. Evolution is a scientific theory. Do you understand? Literally like a conspiracy theory. You know the conspiracy theory is conspiracy theory? That's literally what it is. Me and Nolene were like the museum the other week, and it was crazy. We had like, the human, it was a massive wall. And it started with, the man and the family tree of man. And as you look at the family tree, there's a monkey, you're a monkey, your mom is a monkey, everybody's family is a monkey. And after the monkey, you have like a dinosaur and a crocodile. And then they literally have your starting point as a bacteria. So you are a bacteria. You are a blood bag of viruses and germs. You started as a microorganism, a little germ and a little virus and a little bacteria. And they had on it your family tree. I'm like, so inspiring. I'm a virus. Thank you very much. I'm like, it makes a lot of sense. Why do you guys treat us like that? It makes a lot of sense because you literally believe that we started as viruses. Science without God will be the most oppressive tool for dictatorial, atheist government to control the world. Not conspiracy, friend. It's not a conspiracy. It used to be a religion. It used to be witchcraft. It used to be magic. But science is simply a new tool of gaining more power. Because this is really important. Christianity is about the pursuit of truth. Science is about the pursuit of reality. Truth and reality are two different things, and reality can shift and change with time based on your perception, based on your perspective, and based on what you think. So sometimes science will land at truth, but a lot of times science will land at a conspiracy. Simply because Christianity is about the pursuit of truth. Science is about the pursuit of reality. But reality can be distorted based on your perception, based on your worldview, and based on your presupposition. And this is the problem. People think they're trying to pursue truth. But what people don't realize is that your worldview is the starting block of your reality. So if you believe vaccine saves lives, you will find every single reason to believe vaccine saves lives. If you believe that vaccine is the mark of the beast, you'll find every single reason to believe the vaccine is the mark of the beast. Because people, in essence, are religious beings. They're not logical, they're emotional. They don't look at the facts, they don't look at the science, and they don't look at the data. They simply need a tiny fear-mongering story and narrative to control them. That is why the gospel is a narrative. And science is rising to be a new religion. It's no longer the pursuit of reality. It's simply the pursuit of religion. And science makes a horrible God, if you didn't see the last 2 years. Because you don't have a will, you don't have freedom, you don't have rights, and you don't get to choose. I'm saying science makes a horrible God. Because you don't have a will, you don't have a freedom, you don't have a right, and you do not get to choose. This is because secular science is not science. Denying God is not science. Science is about understanding the scientist, the creator. When science has a goal of rejecting the creator, this is no longer science. This is religious ideology. So, your freedom comes from God, not from science. Science will tell you how to fix something, but it will not tell you when you should do it, why you should do it. So we have replaced morality with science, and we have replaced God with technology. I'm saying we have replaced morality with science, and we have replaced God with technology. Yet freedom will never, ever, ever come from our scientific institution. Freedom will never, ever, ever come from men. And freedom is so precious, there is no scientific experiment that you can construct to prove that freedom is important. That's the thing. Science might tell you the how, but it will tell you it will not tell you the who. Science will tell you the what, but it will not tell you the why. A science is so smart, but it's so shallow. It's so deep, but it's not deep enough. Because there's so many things in the world you don't see that you believe in. What about wind? What about love? What about emotions? What about fatherhood? What about justice? What about peace? Just because you can't see it, just because you can't define it, just because you can't qualify it and quantify it and measure it, it does not mean it's not real. But our culture, after its rejection of God, worships the God of secularism. What does secularism mean? It literally means everything is just natural. Secularism does not believe in any spiritual reality beyond what people can see and touch. So if you can't see it, it's not true. If you can't touch it, it's not true. If you can't see it, it's not true. If you can't touch, it's not true. And that's why a lot of people have mental health now. The problem isn't scientific, it's spiritual. You can chuck all the medicine in the world. You can chuck all the vaccination in the world. I worked in the mental health industry for 3 years. I worked as a school chaplain for 4 years. I'm telling you here right now, the problem isn't scientific. It's spiritual. Is it normal that mental health went from 10% of the world to now like 50, 60, 70% of the world? That's exactly what happens when you have a secular culture. You are nothing but a bag of viruses and bones, and you are nothing but a chemical reaction. And every time you have a problem, you don't need to go to God. You do not need to change your emotions. You do not need to repent. You do not need to go to God and maybe change your mind. No. We will give you a medication. We will give you anything. So, as the people of God, we believe science, but we don't worship science. We might love science, but science is not the ultimate worldview and perspective of our life. This is really important. Jesus said, come and follow me. How interesting that the political slogan last year was follow the science. Follow is a really big word in the Christian worldview. Jesus said, you must follow me. Trust the science. I'm like, actually, the Bible said, trust the Lord with all your heart. These are really deeply religious words. Trust, follow, believe. Trust, follow, believe. This is simply because we now no longer live in the area of science. We live now in the arena of scientism. What is scientism? When science becomes the official religion of the state. Where every time you want to do anything, science, follow the science, and you will see in the next few years with climate change. Science has set humanity on a new mission and goal. Your goal is no longer to save souls, but to save the planet. The worst thing in the world is not the judgment of God in hell. No. Apparently the world is going to all be on fire and we're all going to die by 2030. If you have been listening to the news. So science have replaced the Great Commission with climate activism. Again, we love the climate. You should take care of the climate. There's no drama. But when your mission and goal becomes climate change, we literally have a whole country that voted for climate change. It's like, really? But that's the thing. Science is replacing the Great Commission with climate activism. The final, most horrible thing in the world is no longer people going to the fire of hell, but the planet dying from the fire of the climate. Your goal is no longer to save people, but to save the planet. And your goal is no longer to save souls, but to save the climate. So we have a new apocalyptic end time event where the climate is going to judge the world for its sins. This is the issue though. God called us to steward the climate, but the climate exists for us, not us for the climate. Christianity is a hierarchy. We exist for God, not God for us. The animals exist for us, not us for the animals. Sorry, all the vegan in the back. It's really important. This is really, really important. Vegans, most vegans, they give their money to save the animals, but they support abortion. It's like, what? Like, what's more important, the baby or the chicken? Are you serious, honey? If you're vegan, I was a vegan for 6 months, but then I killed a lot of meat after it. This is really important. We're not in the circle of life. We are in the hierarchy of life. God reigns and God is king. We serve God. God doesn't serve us. Animals serve us. We don't serve the animals. It's really important. The climate serves us, not us the climate. God called us to take care of the climate, to steward the planet, obviously. But we do not exist for the climate. The climate exists for us. It's not a circle, it's a hierarchy. It's not the circle of life, it's the hierarchy of life. God, man, animals, nature. God, man, animals, nature. And people that lack spiritual discernment cannot see that this is a new COVID crisis to try to manipulate the people of God or a new hype. Last year, COVID, stop the spread. Progressives are really interesting because the foundation of the progressive worldview is three things. Number one, according to progressives, the past is evil. Racism, sexism, oil, all this kind of stuff, whatever you're into, transphobia. According to a progressive, the past is evil, the now is crisis, and the future is heaven if you vote for me. So you will always see crisis on the news. It's like COVID, monkeypox. I'm like, what's next? Climate change. It will not stop. Because it's a worldview and a religion. The progressive worldview has a foundation. The past is evil. The now is crisis. And the future is heaven if you give me the power. Can I say one more time? The past is evil. The now is crisis. That's why you have the COVID crisis, the climate crisis, the wealth inequality crisis, the racism crisis. I'm like, how many crises do you have, man? Can you stop? The crisis never stop. We have the Aboriginal crisis. We have the suicide crisis. We have the mental health crisis. I'm like, everything is crisis. The health crisis. The hospitals, crisis. The teachers, crisis. I'm like, the whole world is crisis. But that is progressive ideology. The past is evil, so we need to condemn it and burn it down. Burn down Harbour Bridge. I'm like, all right, relax. Burn down the flag. I'm like, cool. Cancel Australia Day. Cancel everything. The past is evil. The now is crisis. There is always a crisis. Ukraine crisis. It doesn't stop. And the future is perfect utopia without God. This is the progressive ideology. The future is perfect. Zero carbon emission. Zero COVID cases. Zero wealth inequality. Zero racism. Zero sexism. I'm like, how are you going to achieve that, man? You can't. The only way to achieve zero sexism and racism is to kill everybody. Funny enough, that's why Hitler became a psychopath, because he was a progressive. Hitler was a progressive. Yeah, that's right. Did you know that Hitler was a progressive? The progressives never tell you. He had a utopian vision of a perfect world with the perfect race and the perfect wealth equality. That's why he killed so many people for the utopian world that they desire. Yet nothing is progressive under the sun. Nothing is progressive. Humanity is not moving forward. Humanity is actually moving backward. And this is the problem with progressive Christians particularly, is that they think we are moving forward. History is not a straight line. History is a circle. History repeats itself, and history will rhyme itself. Even though history doesn't simply repeat itself bit by bit, it will rhyme and rhyme and rhyme. And progressives simply don't understand that, because they're more progressive than Christianity. They're more progressive than morality. They're more progressive than the Bible. They're more progressive than 4,000 years of history, of the human history. They want to do communism in a better way. So funny. It's like, we're going to do it better. I'm like, really? Yet God is not progressive because God is perfect. God is not moving forward because God is eternal. And progressive ideology is extremely religious. Most people, you are born, and culture by essence is always trying to make you prideful. It's the progressive ideology hinges on pride, that you are better than the people before you. Yet we're killing millions of babies every single year, and we're judging racism. I'm like, we're doing the same thing, mate. We're stabbing, poisoning millions of babies every single year, and we're judging Hitler. It's the exact same chemical, actually. The same person who invented the chemical to kill the Jews, the exact same person who invented the chemical to kill the first abortion movement. We're not that different. But that's a problem. Progressive ideology is hinged on self-righteousness. I am better than you. I know what is right, and therefore you are wrong. And therefore you need to follow me, and you have to submit to me. And if you don't submit to me, you're racist. If you don't submit to me, you're homophobe. If you don't submit to me, you're sexist. If you don't submit to me, you're anti-vaxxer. If you don't submit to me, you're climate denier. I'm like, leave me alone, man. Leave me alone. Yeah. Government in the name of science. And the time will come when every single individual will either worship the God of the state or the God of the Bible. You will have to make a decision. Our church, a lot of churches in the last 365 days, they lost half of the congregation. We at least doubled. Because our mission is not to stop the spread of a virus. Our mission is to spread the gospel. Our mission is to not get people vaccinated. Our mission is to get people saved. Our mission is not to get you not to die, because you will die anyways. Our mission is to save your soul. Our mission is not to stop climate change. Our mission is to see people go to heaven. The devil is incrementally working really hard to distract churches and the people of God from the mission of the Great Commission. He's so smart. And it's funny, most people fall for it. It's hilarious. You're like, cool, you fell for COVID, no drama. Like, now you're falling for Ukraine, and now you're going to fall for the climate. I'm like... The devil's goal through all these religious ideologies is to get you to worship a God that is not God. That's why it said in Daniel, if you do not worship, Daniel 3. It said, anyone who refuses to obey will be thrown into a blazing furnace. There's going to be a lot of gods thrown around at you in the next few years that people are going to demand you to worship. And you're going to have to make a decision, which God are you going to worship and which God are you going to serve? And freedom is a really precious value and experience. I say that for me as a refugee, who my parents lost everything because of preaching the gospel. We've lost our house, we've lost our family, we've lost our money, we've lost our careers, we've lost everything. Because freedom is the most precious commodity. And most people tend to value it because they already have it. The people that experience oppression, injustice, and slavery tend to value freedom the most. Yet freedom is not a governmental privilege. It's a God-designed idea that He has extended to every single human being to freely think, to freely choose, to freely worship, to freely speak. And God will judge you on the freedom that He extended you, not on the government mandates and laws and policies. I'm saying God will judge you based on the freedom He has given you, not on the mandates, laws, or policies that any government will make or create. And that's the thing, even as you go through the fire of Babylon, God will save you. And God will get you out. Across COVID, there was a lot of Anglican theologians. If you're Anglican, I love you. And they were kind of talking, like, one of the biggest issues I have, like, particularly a lot of Western pastors, is that they have a good philosophy about why freedom is not important. They were like, yeah, Christianity is not about freedom, it's about love. I'm like, it's about both, actually. I'm like, you are so intellectual about your freedom. Dude, I grew up in a country, it was illegal to invite people to church. I grew up in a country, it was illegal for you, if you're not a Christian, to go to church. I didn't know that you can invite your friends to church. I did not know you can plant a church. I did not know you can start a church. I did not know you can actually share your faith outside of church. I did not know you can post about your faith and not get arrested. I didn't know that. And it's a really simplistic, dogmatic view of love. To put love and freedom as if there's two different enemies that we need to choose one. It's exactly like justice or mercy. I'm like, they're both important. It's like love or judgment. I'm like, they're both important. It's like grace or truth. I'm like, they're both important. It's like spirit or scripture. I'm like, they're both important. It's like heart or head. I'm like, they're both important. It's not freedom or love. It's both. In fact, you cannot love if there is no freedom. I'm saying you cannot love if there is no freedom, because it will be illegal for you to help someone in love. So all these Western pastors, theologians, all the progressive coming on the block, I'm like, that's a thing. You're talking about freedom from a theoretical point of view. Yet freedom is a God-given right. It's not a theory. And even if something is illegal, even if worshiping God is illegal, even if becoming a Christian is illegal, even if going to church is illegal, God will still judge you. Not on the law, on His word. What happened in the last few years is really important, because people are trying to understand, how did we lose freedom? I'm like, the current umbrella of the religious ideology in our world, critical theory, stakeholder capitalism, racism, sexism, all that kind of stuff, it's secular humanism, which is different from Christianity. So Christianity is simply about God. Secular humanism is about man. That's why the mark of the beast, 666, the mark of man. The anti-God ideology will always be human-centric. It's not about the Bible, it's about what people think. It's not about truth, it's about what people feel. So secular humanism ended up Christianity believes in religion. Secular humanism is pretty much atheism. There's no God. Atheism created postmodernism. You can be you can have your own truth, I can have my own truth, everybody has their own truth. There is no truth. The Christian religion believes in truth. Can I tell something to someone? Christianity is a religion. What does that mean? We actually have ideas that we believe in that you can't break. Religion is not a bad thing. It's actually not a bad thing. I know all the progressive Jesus, spirit, love, Jesus is a relation, not a religion. He's both. You can't have a relationship with Jesus and believe anything. They're just stupid. You know what I'm saying? So religion is a system of faith that you believe in. Christianity is a system and a person. It's not one or. Again, it's a false dichotomy. Out of postmodernism, you ended up with hyper-emotionalism. But what's interesting about the Christian truth, this is what people don't understand. Science actually happened because of Christianity. Because Christianity is not just faith without understanding. Christianity is faith seeking understanding. Proverbs 3, it said, trust God, trust the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Catch this, it did not say remove your understanding. It said do not depend on your understanding. Christianity does not remove logic. Christianity does not remove reality. Christianity does not remove science. It doesn't. Christianity does not remove reality. It's not faith without understanding. It's faith seeking understanding. It's not faith without facts. It's faith that faces the facts. It's not religion without reason. It's religion that is seeking reason. That's why we're pretty logical people. Theological. In the beginning was the Logos, the Word, the logic of God. Jesus is the logic of God. But postmodernism is really different. It's pure emotionalism. It doesn't need to make sense. The more it doesn't make sense, the more it's true. It's great. It's like, dude, you don't make sense. And this is really scary because most people are now that. It's like, does the vaccine work? Who cares? Just take the vaccine. How effective is it? Nobody cares. Can you get sick from it? I'm like, dude, what is going on? I can't ask questions. Science is not supposed to be trusted. Science is supposed to be questioned. It's because this is the official religion of the state. Secular humanism. The media does not need to give you any facts. All they need to do is give you a feeling strong enough to control you and move you. Fear or anger. It's really simple. The media does not need to give you any form of reason and logic. It just needs a secular humanism. Give you a feeling. Take the vaccine or you're going to kill the grandmas. I'm like, you don't take a vaccine so grandma wouldn't die. You take a vaccine because it works. Things don't need to make sense. That's the idea of human secularism. It doesn't need to make sense. It can be really stupid. In fact, the more stupid, the more believable. Have you guys noticed it? You're like, what is going on, man? It's like, you don't make sense, dude. Like, it doesn't matter. I can feel it, though. Postmodernism. And reason and logic. And hyper-emotionalism. That's how we got identity politics. But in Christianity, reason and logic, it created the Imago Dei. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and God created male and female in His image. I'm not sure I'm going to do the next one. Oh, the thingy. That's good. But this is really important because the Christian ideology actually eventually ended up with freedom. God literally said in Genesis, you are free to eat from any fruit that I have given you. Yet postmodernism mixed with secular humanism, as you can clearly see, it will end up in dictatorship. Everything is simply a bunch of law and power and policy. So you don't believe in climate change? No drama. They're going to just make the fuel $10 a liter. You have to believe in it. You don't get a choice. You know what I'm saying? I don't believe that. I'm happy to go to work and get COVID. It doesn't matter. Christianity has a goal of your freedom. Secular science has a goal of your safety. Christianity has a goal of your liberty. Secular science will lead to your enslavement. And this is not a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy. It's genuinely not a conspiracy because the more you celebrate sin and the rejection of God, the more you will end with slavery, injustice, and oppression. And the more you celebrate truth, the more you will end up in freedom because truth is the foundation of freedom and truth is the pathway to freedom. That's why Jesus said, and you will know the truth. And the truth will set you free. That's why Paul said, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. God is after freedom. Freely you have received, so freely give. You are free to choose. You are free to become. The gospel is the gospel of freedom.